For over 2 decades, he was the maestro, the composer who wrote the soundtracks to our childhoods, the director who built the worlds we adventured in, one of the faces of the biggest media franchises on Earth, Junichi Masuda. On June 1st, 2022, he officially stepped down from his managing director role at Game Freak, taking on a new role as Chief Creative Fellow at the Pokemon Company, a Legends well-earned victory lap. At least, that's the story they told us. But what if I told you that this man, who defined Pokemon for over a generation, wasn't promoted, but actually fired? Over the last year, a massive hack of Game Freak's internal servers, dubbed the Teraleak, unleashed a torrent of new confidential documents dating back to 2021 to 2022. Follow-up information about this leaked alongside Pokemon ZA, and among them was a bombshell that threatened to reframe the last decade of Pokemon's history. Leaked internal memos, shared by the reputable Pokemon leaker Central Leaks, described an internal power struggle so intense that it culminated in the shocking directive. Junichi Masuda was reportedly banned from directing mainline Pokemon games. The documents paint a picture not of a celebrated visionary, but of a leader whose power had become absolute and detrimental. They describe the period of his leadership as the era of Masuda's absolute dominance, a time when he alone handled development planning, personnel decisions, public relations, and game design, and where, put simply, no one could oppose him. This concentration of power, the leak alleges, led to an organization that was running out of control. Game development shifted from being focused on fun to being driven by public relations, and the team could no longer do proper game design. The breaking point reportedly came when a heated argument within the walls at Game Freak resulted in the decision that Masuda would be barred from directing mainline titles from that point forward. It is crucial to approach such leaks with a degree of skepticism. While Central Leaks has a strong track record, information from hacks can be misinterpreted. However, the details within these documents align so precisely with the public timeline of events that they demand a complete re-examination of his career. To fully understand the severity of this leak for Pokemon's history, we first have to answer a fundamental question. How did one man gain so much power in the first place? The franchise was born in the late 1980s from the mind of Satoshi Tajiri, whose childhood love of insect collecting formed the game's core concept and given its iconic look by artist Ken Sugimori. When Tajiri and his friends officially founded the development group Game Freak in 1989, they had a vision, but they lacked a proper composer. Tajiri was put into contact with one of his early collaborators, Junichi Masuda, and invited him to join the fledgling company that same year to compose the music for their very first game, Mendo Palace. For the first generation of Pokemon games, which began development around 1990 and culminated in the Japanese release of Pokemon Red and Green on February 27, 1996, Masuda's role was primarily technical and auditory, of which he was credited with programming music and sound effects. His role expanded slightly in 1999's Pokemon Gold and Silver, where he served as a sub-director, but the franchise's creative direction was still largely guided by its original creators. The pivotal moment came with the release of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire on November 21, 2002. For this third generation, Satoshi Tajiri stepped back, and Junichi Masuda took the director's chair for the very first time. This was a fundamental shift. A director is the ultimate creative authority, a figure like Nintendo's Shigeru Miyamoto or Dark Souls' Hidetaka Miyazaki, whose personal philosophies shape every aspect of the final product. Where Tajiri's inspiration was the systematic hobby of collecting, Masuda's was rooted in emotion and atmosphere, basing the Hoenn region on his own childhood memories. This transition from a game primarily about catching, battling, and trading to one centered on atmosphere, story, and accessibility would define his entire tenure. His background as a composer, whose job is to evoke feeling through melody and harmony, deeply informed his approach as a director. The commercial result was undeniable. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire became the best-selling games on the Game Boy Advance, cementing Masuda's leadership and proving that the franchise could not only survive, but thrive under his new creative lead. But what does it look like when one man has absolute power over a franchise beloved by millions across the world? To firmly grasp the reign of Junichi Masuda, we must first understand the machine that defined it. The Nintendo DS. Launched in 2004, the DS was a true cultural phenomenon. It wasn't just a new successor to the Game Boy, it was a revolution in handheld gaming with its dual screens, touchscreen, and groundbreaking wireless capabilities. For a generation of young, impressionable players, the DS was Pokemon. Its features became staples of the experience. The bottom screen for Pokétech or menus, the pixel art style that was rich with personality, and the introduction of online trading and battling that connected players globally for the first time. This era cemented an image in the minds of millions of what a Pokemon game should look and feel like, creating a powerful nostalgic benchmark that would shape fan expectations for years to come. We even see this play into today's era of handheld gaming, with new devices coming out that clearly mimic the clamshell design of the DS, further showing the continued demand for this form factor. This nostalgia often gets tangled up in discussions of franchise fatigue. It's a real concern for many series, most notably the Call of Duty series, where the relentless yearly release schedule can trample on the IP's scope, making each new entry feel iterative and stale. However, unlike yearly release games, Pokemon is fundamentally resistant to that kind of fatigue. Its core loop of discovering new creatures, exploring vast new regions, and engaging with an ever-expanding universe of media is designed for renewal, not repetition. The problem Pokemon was facing wasn't creative exhaustion. It was an impending collision with the limits of its hardware. The DS era represented the absolute peak of what Game Freak could achieve within the 2D, sprite-based world that they have been exploring for over a decade. The real challenge, as we will discuss later, would come when the series had to leap into the third dimension. Nonetheless, the perfect alignment of Masuda's vision and the DS capabilities created a smash hit. This was Pokemon's golden age. The period following Masuda's directional debut, spanning the entire life cycle of the Nintendo DS, represents the apex of his creative control and the franchise's commercial power. The games released during this time, Diamond and Pearl in 2006, Platinum in 2008, Heart Gold and Soul Silver in 2009, and Black and White in 2010, are often cited by fans as a golden age for the series. Critically and commercially, the data supports this sentiment, showcasing a period of unprecedented and sustained success under his direct leadership. In any corporate environment, such a track record of success validates a leader's methods, no matter how controlling they may be. This external success likely created an internal feedback loop, reinforcing the belief that his singular vision was the correct one and insulating him from opposition. The very success that defined this golden age paradoxically sowed the seeds for the internal conflict yet to come. While the world saw a string of beloved classics, the leaked documents suggest a different reality inside Game Freak's offices. This was the period where, as the leak claims, no one could oppose him. This style of direction is not unique in the gaming industry. Figures like Hideo Kojima, creator of Metal Gear Solid and Death Stranding, are famous for their cinematic, all-encompassing control, often writing, directing, and producing their projects to fit a singular, uncompromising vision. However, there's a crucial difference in execution. Kojima's control, while absolute, is often in service of pushing the technical and narrative boundaries of the medium itself. Masuda's absolute dominance, as described by the leaks, appears to have lacked this collaborative trust and boundary-pushing impulse, instead leading to a creative bottleneck where the organization began to run out of control. Pokemon Black and White, released in 2010, stands as the ultimate monument to this era of singular vision. The game was a bold and ambitious soft reboot, introducing 156 entirely new Pokemon and barring any old creature until the postgame. It featured a more mature and complex narrative than any title before it. The result was a critical masterpiece, tying for the highest Metacritic score in the series' history. However, it was also divisive. Some fans missed their old favorites, and the game saw a slight dip in sales compared to its predecessor Diamond and Pearl. While still a massive commercial success, this was perhaps the first sign that Masuda's creative instincts, however brilliant, were not universally aligned with the entire fanbase. So, when put under immense development and consumer pressure, what happened to this system of creating Pokemon games? The transition to the Nintendo 3DS with Pokemon X and Y of October 2013 was the most significant technological leap in the franchise's history. This is the moment where many fans feel Pokemon lost its spark, as the demands of 3D development clashed with the design philosophy that, according to Masuda himself, was still rooted in the principles of 2D graphics. From a fan perspective, X and Y was a mixed bag. While visually impressive for its time, it has since been criticized as feeling dry and empty or badly rushed compared to their content-rich games of the DS era. The lack of a substantial post-game and a relatively simple world design left many feeling that the series had lost some of its depth and transition to 3D. Internally, this pressure seemed to have reached a boiling point. The leaked documents point the development of X and Y as the moment of a major confrontation between Masuda and Ken Sugimura, the series' foundational art director and a figure of equal legendary status. This clash, born from the immense strain of modernizing the franchise, reportedly led directly to the internal decision that Masuda would no longer be allowed to direct new mainline games from that point on. This was likely not the result of a single argument, but rather a corporate realization that a leadership style of absolute dominance was a critical bottleneck in the collaborative, resource-intensive environment of a 3D game development. The perceived flaws of X and Y, its empty feeling, could be seen as the direct consequence of the centralized decision-making process failing under the weight of a far more complex project. The fight with Sugimori may have been the catalyst that provided the political cover to enact the necessary but difficult organizational change. After directing X and Y in 2013, Masuda's role shifted to producer for 2016's Pokemon Sun and Moon, with Shigeru Omori taking the helm as the new director. This wasn't a complete exile. Masuda would later direct the spin-off titles Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee in 2018, and Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl in 2021. Unlike the successful Let's Go spin-offs, the Sinnoh remakes were criticized for being an overly faithful recreation of the original Diamond and Pearl, while deliberately ignoring the vast improvements in fan-favorite content from the definitive third version, 2008's Pokemon Platinum. This decision was seen as a direct reflection of a director who only believes in his own vision to a flawed extent. He chose to remake his original version, not the one the community embraced as superior. His public statements and design choices seemed to confirm fans' worst fears, that the leadership was disconnected from its player base. With all this turmoil, what was his and the Pokemon Company's final fate? So, was he fired or was he promoted? The reality, illuminated by the leaks, is likely both. It appears to have been a promotion that served as a function of a firing, a common corporate maneuver to move a powerful but disruptive figure upstairs. He was given a title that honored his legacy, but was removed from the role where he was allegedly causing friction. The end of Masuda's era marks the most significant leadership transition for the series in over 20 years, as leaks also confirm his successor, Shigeru Omori, was no longer the main director as of 2024. For the first time since 2002, the future is in truly new hands. This comes as the Teraleak exposed more than just drama, it exposed numbers. Leaked documents revealed the development budget for recent Pokemon titles, roughly $16 million for Sword and Shield, $22 million for Scarlet and Violet, and around $13 million for Legends ZA. For the next mainline entry, Generation 10, it is sitting at around $20 million. To put that into perspective, Nintendo's own The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild had an estimated budget of around $100 million, while other major AAA titles can cost even more than that. For the highest grossing media franchise on Earth, these budgets are shockingly low. The best way I can view Pokemon's current development cycle seems to be a combination of Apple's incremental innovations, shown with the iPhone releases, experimental innovations explored in spin-off titles similar to that of the Monster Hunter franchise. Why spend $100 million on a game when a 20 million version will still sell over 20 million copies and, more importantly, successfully launch the next billion-dollar wave of merchandise? The mainline games are treated as low-cost, high-return advertisements for the rest of the Pokemon empire. Despite this, many key features from spin-off titles, such as Legends Arceus with its more open-world exploration, are implemented in mainline titles and refined in some way. Leaked documents seem to paint a picture they are trying to strike a balance between a good budget and a refined enough output for a game, especially with the alleged new Pokemon engine dubbed the Pokemon Engine X, slated to arrive in Generations 10, Pokemon Winds and Waves. Regardless of Game Freak's budgetary approach, the Teraleak even contains documents where they clearly acknowledge the immense fan demand for black and white remakes, stating that such a project should have a lot more love and care put into them. This is a direct admission that they are aware of the fan desire and are consciously choosing when and how to deploy their resources, saving the love and care for a project they know is a guaranteed home run. This brings us back to Junichi Masuda. His legacy is not just the music he composed or the golden age he directed. Lasting legacy is the very system we see today. The era of absolute dominance wasn't just about creative control. It was about establishing a development philosophy that prioritized accessibility and mass market appeal. This philosophy, while widely successful, created a corporate culture where good enough became the standard because it was always profitable. The future of Pokemon, with new directors at the helm and a fan base armed with the knowledge of just how little is being spent, now hinges on a final crucial question. Can the franchise ever escape the shadow of its most notable emperor? The answer to this question will define Pokemon's legacy for years to come.